Hi folks, Canadian Prepper here. So today I want to start a new series on the channel. I've been using these YouTube polls on the community tab of YouTube, and if you're not on mobile you might not see this, but I will occasionally post a poll. Some of the polls are different scenarios and I ask you what you would do in that particular scenario. Some of them are more, statistics based. And contrary to what some people have said, some very paranoid individuals have said, I'm not doing this in order to mine your data. I have absolutely no interest in that. And to be quite honest, they already know everything about you. If you're on this platform for more than an hour a day, they probably know more about you than you do yourself. It's just a fact. So what I'm going to try to do here is record my phone so we can go through one of my most recent polls, which asks the question, how much supplies do you have stored, or how long would you be able to last if the crap hit the fan in an hour? How long would you be able to endure based on the supplies that you have on hand, and of course taking into consideration your skills and your knowledge, where you live, all of those things. Turn all the porn off. Just kidding. My wife would kill me if she seen that, because she wasn't invited. Just kidding. While that's loading, we got these new bug out rolls. They got a matte finish. I don't know, is that how you pronounce it? A matte finish? It's basically the same Tearmaster material, only it's just a different run. This run doesn't have the glossy finish to it. This is actually the pack roll configuration, so this is all one roll. There's no modular aspect to this. It's a bit cheaper than our Cordura rolls, and this thing is heavy duty. I mean, it weighs a lot, so you're getting a lot of bulk and a lot of heft for your money. It's not built cheap at all. You get 8 18-inch strands of YKK number 10 zipper encasing the 30 gauge cold crack resistant vinyl, and it's just built like a tank, built like an absolute tank. This thing, we sell it right now for $174.99 Canadian, which in US dollars is probably around 130 bucks or something like that. But to have something at that price point made in Canada from start to finish, with the exception of a few parts that we get from overseas, this is a steal of a deal. And I can honestly say, in the last year, we've been able to probably sustain 3 or 4 people for employment. So we are making a difference. So here was the question: if SHDF in 1 hour, how long are you prepared for? Take into consideration food, water, shelter, security, both stored supplies, and your ability to replenish those supplies through renewable resources or scavenging when choosing your response. So here's the outcome of the poll. 30% of people said that they had under 2 weeks of food stored. So that was pretty surprising, considering this is not a random sample of the population of a whole. This is a very biased population, because the target group here is, of course, people who are subscribed to the channel, and I'm guessing that the people who would enter a poll like this were probably already the prepper survivalist mindset. So I think if you were to do this study just on the general public, that number would be much higher. I'm guessing it would probably be more to 70 to 80%. So what we have here, I should say, is we have a 1.6 thousand volts, so 1600 volts, which is a very statistically sound study. However, like I said, it's only a random sample of a predominantly prepper population, but very significant in terms of how we would rate the confidence in our statistics. It's been a long time since I took statistics, so I don't remember all the jargon. But generally speaking, this is a pretty accurate reflection of the preparedness community, is what I'm trying to say. So I'm going to try to break it down, what it means, and we're going to take a little bit of analysis, because each of these people who voted had the opportunity to leave comments, and then we're going to look at some of those comments and see if we can determine what factors contribute to a person's only being well prepared for 2 weeks compared to somebody, say, who's been prepping for over a year. So under 2 weeks, 30%, 2 weeks to 3 months, 39%. So that's pretty much where the majority of my subscribers lie. And I would say probably preppers on a whole, because remember, this is a very representative population of preppers. So 2 weeks to 3 months, and that's pretty decent. That is going to basically carry you through a regional disaster like a Hurricane Sandy, a Hurricane Katrina. By regional, I mean something that's state-wide. It may not prepare you, of course, for a much larger disaster scenario of epic, catastrophic, potentially cataclysmic proportions, which is what the 3 months to a year plus preppers, those are the people who are going to be prepared for that. So 3 to 6 months, 13%. 6 months to a year, 9%. And a year plus 9%. So people who are prepared to do 3 months and above is actually 32%. So that's pretty sizable. 6 months to a year, of course, 9%, and 1 year, which is very equivalent to that. So let's go through some of these responses and see what people had to say. Generally speaking, what I found, because I've already done a bit of a qualitative analysis of this, the people who only have under 2 weeks worth of preparedness products are either A, new preppers. They're people who are very young. There are people who have financial constraints which limit their ability to prep for more than 2 weeks, which I'm going to talk about why that's a misnomer. There, you absolutely can prepare for 3 to 6 months on a budget. And also people who have physical health complications, who are reliant on medication that pretty much has to be prescribed, or on different machinery which requires the grid to function. Now, people who have 1 year plus of supplies tend to be either older, they tend to be people who have a military background, they tend to be people who grew up on farms. And when I say older, I mean, over the 50-yard line. So, not necessarily older, but, just people who are past the midlife point, we'll say. What else did I observe about that? Yeah, mostly people who are in a rural environment. And I'm sure once we read some more comments here, we will get a better sense of that. So this guy, Bubba, he's got a really long comment, so I'm not going to read the whole thing. Generally speaking, he says, he's been prepping for a long time, and he's got food for many, many people, and so he can basically support a small army. This guy, under 2 weeks, broke as a joke. So let's just address this issue right away. A lot of people, prepping when you first start, you're not going to have much. I mean, when I didn't start prepping until I was over 30, and I can tell you it took a long time to get to where I am today. And I probably would have been much farther were it not for the channel, because the channel takes up a lot of my time that I could have been using to develop my skills more, to just get more resources stored away instead of investing so much money and resources into the channel. So, don't fret if you're not where you need to be right now. Just focus on the slow accumulation of quality skills, of quality gear. Don't make the mistake that a lot of people make, in which you run out and buy a bunch of half-assed gear because you have this sense of urgency that crap is going to hit the fan and you're going to get caught with your pants down. Chances are, the big one, who knows when it's going to come. I mean, realistically, yeah, it could come tomorrow, but chances are it's not. These are high impact, very low probability events when we're talking about the big grand scale SHTF scenario. So I wouldn't worry about that too much. Now, on a more practical level, you can go and you can buy a big bag of rice from a Whole Foods store, a 40-pound bag of rice for, in the States, probably $20. You can go buy one of those buckets. It doesn't have to be a food grade bucket, as long as you store it in a good place, especially because you're going to be putting it in Mylar, in a Mylar bag. So basically and I think that one bag of rice should fill up 2 5-gallon buckets, if I am correct. It's been a while since I've done it, but that right there is 60,000 calories. Actually, I think it's even more than that. It might even be more than that. But that's really 30 days worth of food. Now, obviously, you're gonna want to mix it up, but 30 days worth of calories for probably you're gonna spend, if you include the Mylar bag and the bucket, $35. So literally $1 a day, and that is how people live off $1 a day in the world. It's through eating the staple grains. So you go and you get some beans, and this is that one of the first things I ever did is I stored away, I think it was 8 buckets of rice, different types of rice, some basmati, some you want to get the white rice because the brown rice is not going to keep as long, because I think there's oils in the rice. There's more natural good stuff in it, and it's not as purified, which is why it's not going to last as long. And I think I got chickpeas, some beans, and different kinds of beans, and I just, went to town. Mylar bags, I probably spent maybe $300 total, and right there, boom, well beyond 3 months worth of food just for myself, because that was, when I was single and, I didn't have a family. But I'm pretty sure I could have easily stretched what I had there. No, I could have stretched it probably 6 to 9 months if it was just me. And you don't have to do it all at once. You can do it piecemeal. But if you're really serious about the long game prepping, you can never go wrong with rice in Mylar bags. Like that, it's going to last 25, 30 years. It's dirt cheap, and it's calories. It's going to keep you alive. In terms of water, now, people have seen me review the Berkey water filter on this channel before, and it's a very expensive unit, depending on, how big of a Berkey you want. It's a great investment, especially for practical everyday use, because for the makeshift Berkey that I'm going to talk about, you're probably not going to want that in your kitchen. Your wife certainly is not going to want it in your kitchen. But basically what you can do, so long as you have a water source nearby, and I should say, if you're a prepper and you don't live by an abundant water source, or if you live in a place where there's no water anywhere, then you need to move because that's just not where you should be. You should not be in Nevada if you're a prepper. And if there's preppers out there and you have ways of, maybe there's aquifers or something. I know there's Ecola Blue machines that Alex Jones sells that apparently take water out of the air. They're like reverse humidifiers or something like that, dehumidifiers. So there's that, but not enough to live off, because you're gonna need an energy source for that. So what I propose you do, you can buy the filters from Berkey, and I'm not sure how much they are. They're still pretty expensive, but the Berkey itself, the whole stainless steel contraption, that's going to run you a few $100. But you can just buy the filters, and you can get any old bucket, and you could easily replicate the Berkey system, the bucket system, on your own. It's not hard to do. Just go and see how a Berkey water filter works, and you can just go and buy the filters, screw them into a bottom of a bucket, fill the bucket up with dirty water, and it's going to take out bacteria. It's going to take out lots of the bad taste, because it's activated carbon mostly, and it's going to be good for most cases. I don't think it filters out viruses like the Renovo Move Eclipse system. Free plug for my store here. So we're actually selling these at CanadianPreparedness.com. This is the most advanced, versatile, modular water filter available. This is elite stuff right here. I'm going to talk about that more in a future video. But you can go to something like that, but you don't necessarily need that. You can just go and buy the filters and do your own makeshift thing. So keep that in mind. We could do a whole video on budget prepping, which I do plan on doing at some point. But those are the two main things you're going to need: food and water. And of course, if you live in a very cold climate like I do, finding a way to heat, to stay warm, particularly in wintertime, of course, is going to be absolutely essential. So like this comment here, my biggest challenge is water. I live in a small apartment. It's difficult to find space. This is the thing. If you have a water filter, I know they say that the bacteria is going to build up even in you know, like the blue can, even in the like the professional water storage, like the water in Mylar, the emergency drinking water, bacteria is still going to build up in there because it's never a 100% clean process when they put the water in there. But even if that happens, you can still filter it out. So long as you have a water filter, you can store a sizable amount of water in a closet somewhere. So, and that's when I started. I only had, the only storage space I had was a closet. And I had 6 to 9 months of food stored in there. I had, and all my normal stuff I would have in the closet. And you can actually do it in such a way where it's hidden. So you can hang your clothes over top of it. You'll never even know it's there. There's a lot of ways to do it. Space, you got to think vertically as well, like in terms of stacking stuff. The only thing, if you're in an apartment, you know, make sure it's a sturdy apartment, which you're not going to put too much weight in one spot and risk doing damage to the structure. This one guy, I'm not prepared at all in an SHT scenario. F word. Well, thanks, you just got this video demonetized. Actually, they won't demonetize it. What they'll do is they'll make it restricted for younger people, but whatever. They shouldn't be watching this anyways, or they should, and they shouldn't. I have 2 kids and I'm a single parent. Even if I was fully prepared, my kids are not. They get upset when I tell them no to YouTube. LOL. Under 2 weeks. Man, I can relate to that so much. Don't even get me started. A lot of kids are not prepared. And a lot of parents nowadays are too afraid to parent their kids like they should parent them. And they're not preparing them for whatever sort of challenges may lie ahead in a world in which there is no security nets for every single possible problem that you might face. Recently diagnosed with celiac disease last December. I'm sorry to hear that. And have to eat gluten-free or face debilitating health deterioration. And while an endgame scenario is going to be a you eat what you can get kind of world, I'm still in the process of acquiring an extensive storage of gluten-free food that I can potentially eat for at least a little while first and live a little longer without the onset of intestinal cancer and other things brought about by ingesting gluten repeatedly. You know, I wonder if when the grid goes down, if it goes down, which at this rate it seems inevitable, there's just so much going on, a lot of the cancer causing things in our environment are also going to be suspended. So I wouldn't be surprised if, you know, you maybe even would get better in that environment. I mean, no EMF radiation, no more, you know, just all the radioactivity, the toxins in the air from the vehicles and just the industrial toxins and pollution. I would bet that some people would actually get better if the grid was down. This person has prepared. Oh, I unloved the comment there. I better re-love that comment. You notice this love thing? You know, they want you to love everything now. Like on Instagram, they want you to love stuff. On YouTube, they want you to love stuff. What's that all about? All American Prepper would have a thing or two to say about that. Let's not go there. We have been warned repeatedly. I have taken it seriously. You should too. With great haste, take action immediately and prepare for Teotwalki. That must be All American Prepper right there. Only, yeah, All American Prepper would inject some sort of religious threats of eternal damnation into the discussion. Okay, let's just scroll down a bit here. Let's find some more. Less than 2 weeks. Simply put, I don't have the money for all the food and medical and protective weapons that aren't knives. I already naturally have the survival gear, yada yada, because it fits my outdoor activity requirements. Well, that's great. So then you already have a distinct advantage in that you're familiar with your surroundings. However, buying weeks worth of food in advance, especially even stuff just like tuna, which is $26 for a rack of 6 cans here, is way too much. Well, what you got to do if you want to buy tuna is you got to buy the big giant cans. And I don't even know if they sell it anymore. They used to sell it at a wholesale place I used to go to, but they don't anymore. And I don't know if that's because tuna's in short supply, you know. And I mean, of course, there's the mercury aspect, which, yeah, that's not going to kill you right away. So I wouldn't let that be the reason why you don't buy tuna for SHTF, but something to consider anyways. Let's see, under 2 weeks. Maybe I could eat my survival books. There's probably a carb or two in there for sure. You could eat the Cambrian layer of the trees. I usually don't have a lot of spare cash and often don't have time in my schedule to go shopping. But on the usual, I have at least a pound of rice, canned veggie spices, pasta and sauce, and a way to cook without power. Yeah, you need to step up your game big time. Big time. Because even in the case of an economic disaster, rapid, inflation or something like that, you want to take advantage of the cheap, abundant, low-priced grains that are available to you right now. I mean, even if you can't get the mylar, just go and buy some and put it in buckets for now. When I did it in winter time, and I've heard it said before that if you do it outside when it's cold, that's going to kill any sort of little bugs that might be in there that could multiply within the mylar bag, even if you do seal it. So you're going to need oxygen absorbers. You don't need oxygen absorbers, but it helps to prevent the growth of anything in there too. Kevin Suggs, longtime subscriber, comments all the time. Under 2 weeks. I'm traveling and living out of bag, so under 2 weeks. And that was one that I forgot to mention. There was a few people who said this, that they travel, so they cannot possibly store that much food. And this might be the case if you are a person who lives in an RV or something like that. But the benefit of that lifestyle is that you're already in bug out mode. So you already know the road. You're already familiar with the road, but it still would help maybe if you had some caches somewhere. 1 year plus after my deployment to Afghanistan, I learned how to improvise and survive. I'm very confident in my skills. So I don't know if he's saying that he has enough food storage on hand, or if that means that he's going to go and find somebody to take it from after SHTF. I'm not sure. 1+ year. I've been doing this a long time, and that's just it. The longer you do it, the better you're going to get. You can't look at a prepper who's been doing this for 10 to 20 years and look at them with envy and say, oh, I'll never be that prepared. Especially if you've only been doing this for a few months or something. I mean, it's a huge investment, and you're not alone. But even if you have over 2 weeks worth of supplies on hand, then I can tell you, you're probably ahead of the overwhelming majority of the population. And I'm not saying that's a good thing, like, yay, we're going to live, they're going to die type thing, because it would be great if they were also prepared. And that's why I try to keep a universal platform going on here, universal appeal with my videos. It doesn't always turn out that way when we got all-American prepper rearing his ugly head every once in a while. 3 to 6 months, under 2 weeks. Just did the winter on EI and ate most of my food stash. Thankfully, I live in a small town, BC, and that should help a bit. Yeah, it really does depend on where you live. In BC, there's lots of natural resources, abundant wildlife, game. Probably one of the most survivable places in Canada, particularly on the west coast. Not necessarily the interior, where it gets cold as hell and there's grizzly bears everywhere. Water is the limiting factor, indeed. And that's why, I know I'm not one of these people that says, you should just uproot your life and, move out into the boonies or move somewhere where there's lots of resources, because I know that's not practical. But in the very least, if you're of the preparedness mindset and you live in a place where that it lacks water, I mean, that's something you're going to have to figure out. You're going to have to dig a well. You're going to have to get a really good rain catchment system to catch lots of the rain that does rarely fall. And even then, if you go through some kind of drought, which is very likely, according to some people, then you're screwed. So keep that in mind. We got some people here who are far more of, homesteader types. They got the seed bank, and you got to be careful with those seed banks that you buy with the heirloom seeds or whatever they are, because a lot of them, they don't have a lot of calories in them. What I would grow is corn or sunflower seeds, obviously wheat, but wheat, there's a lot of processing to wheat as well. But you want to grow like high dense crops like potatoes, things of that nature, things which you don't get in those seed packs. I mean, they're going to give you lots of the foods that are going to provide you with lots of nutrients, which you need in order to function properly, but calories are king. So keep that in mind when you're buying those seed banks, those pre-made ones. Honestly, I said 2 weeks. However, my family are farmers. Okay, so you're you're way ahead. You're probably 10 years. Water, a limiting factor. Not even 3 days. Probably, I keep telling my parents. So youth is another factor. If you're young, if you're under 25 and you're thinking about this stuff, you are way ahead of the game. So don't worry about it. Just keep slowly, incrementally honing your skills. Don't obsess about this. Live your life. Go get your education. Work on your family. Work on your employment. Do those things. But keep building this up on the side. But just don't make it the focal point of your life. And I'm glad I never was into prepping before 30, because it probably would have derailed a lot of my professional development. So keep that in mind. A bit scary, the results. Yeah. Well, it's scarier if we looked at the general population, because the general population is probably very, very ill prepared compared to what we see here with the 39% of people who have 2 weeks to 3 months food storage. Way lower than that. I have prepared tools and nothing more. I feel I can live off nothing for about 5 months. But if, of course, in that time I will be collecting and improving shelter, so who really knows? Yeah, I mean, you're hoping that you're going to rise to the occasion, right? And just be able to MacGyver your way. But what that means is that you're probably going to have an encounter with somebody. And somewhere along the line, unless you don't get a big score right away, you're going to be putting yourself in harm's way. So you may want to reconsider that approach. Even though it's good to have good tools and to have the means to acquire goods, but it's much easier to store it. It's going to be safer. It's going to require much less energy expenditure. And it's going to save your nerves to not have to be out there under the gun trying to scavenge for resources. Just wondering, how can you learn to treat any kind of injury in SHTF? Need to know more about than patching up a boo-boo. Any good books? Okay, like, I don't understand questions like this, and I don't mean to be condescending, but it's the internet, man. You can go and take a first aid course. I mean, this information is everywhere. There's 1,000 first aid books out there. So, I don't know, man. Like, I mean, it's the information age. That's the easy part. Let's see. Plain and simple, I like to keep it mobile. Yeah, 2 weeks to 3 months. You could keep that amount of food mobile. I should also add, the great thing about having my own store now is that I don't have to bring people on to advertise to the channel, because I can advertise for myself. And we're selling Mountain House food now. We're also going to be selling Backpacker's Pantry freeze-dried food. And they are very lightweight and very scrumptious meals. Now, you're not going to want to store all Mountain House because you'd probably break the bank. But it's definitely something I would mix into my staples like rice and beans. Even if you took a bag like this, chili mac and beef. Marshall's having a bad dream. Even if you took this chili mac and beef and you split it into 5 portions and you just mix that in with your rice and you treated yourself, that's 5 days worth of food with rice. So consider that. Expensive, but post-apocalyptic cuisine. Under 2 weeks, but I have ammo. So with that, I can obtain what I need. The world is my Walmart. Man, somebody's going to be in for a real reality check. I mean, how many times you might be able to do that? Once, twice, especially as you move deeper into collapse. People are going to become more adept at doing what you're doing. They're going to be better defended. They're going to have learned, and the targets are going to get harder and harder. Yeah, you're going to hit all the low-hanging fruit at the start, but over time, you're going to be up against survivors, and you're not going to be able to live like that. So I think you're putting yourself in harm's way. The only advantage to that sort of rogue marauder lifestyle and getting a jump on it is that here's the thing. If you have a year's worth of food stored and you're just sitting in your bunker with your shotgun pointed at the door for a year, meanwhile outside all the people who've been scavenging, getting hardened and toughened by the elements, having to survive off grid for a year, they're getting incredibly tough while you're getting probably very stir crazy in the head and very physically out of shape. So when you do finally have to emerge into this new world and become a part of it, you're going to be at a pretty big disadvantage physically and psychologically. There is something to be said for not just isolating yourself, because at some point civilization is going to come back, and chances are before it comes back in a nice, pretty democratic way, things are going to get ugly, and you're going to have to be able to have the street smarts and be toughened, you know, just to the nature of that environment. The people who are going to be out there are the ones who are ruthless enough to do what they have to do in order to survive. And if you just emerge like in Alexandria in The Walking Dead, where, you know, you had this community which was totally cut off. I think most of the people living in that gated community had never even had to kill a zombie. So when Rick and his group came in there, these people were just stunned at how, you know, they perceived them as very primitive people, because they're out there, you know, they're full of blood, and, you know, just the way they go and they kill walkers without hesitation, and something which was totally alien to these people who had been bunkered in and sheltered and pampered in the sanctity of Alexandria for so long. So there is drawbacks to being well taken care of in a crap hits the fan scenario, in that in a long enough timeline, your skills and your physical and your mind are going to atrophy. So I really like doing these poll analyses, and we'll keep doing this. I got a few other polls that I did here. Let's just see some older ones, which were pretty fun too. Yeah, trade war with China. Jeez. That could quickly escalate into some bad news. Okay, so this other one I said, your plane went down, you're lost in the woods, winter, 50 miles from home, and you have nothing at all. You came across a magical box. There can only be one item inside the box. What do you hope it is? The options I gave were a ferrocium rod, a Scandinavian felling axe, a Katana Boy 650 saw, just because. Free advertising. What else here? Oh, Jesus, get back. A shotgun with 50 assorted rounds. 100 feet of Titan Survivor cord. If you don't know what Titan Survivor cord is, it's got like galvanized wire inside it. It's got a fire starter inside. It's paracord with all these other things inside it. Fishing line, wire, fire starter. So the majority of people took the ferrocium rod, which makes perfect sense. It's winter, you're 50 miles from nowhere. You got to start a fire somehow. Most people probably don't know how to make a bojo fire or a friction fire. So, and next was the tie between the axe and the shotgun. So a lot of people were talking about how you can make a fire with a shotgun, and I agree. You know, that in itself is worthy of a video. So anybody who wants to get demonetized, make a video about how to make a fire with a shotgun shell. But be prepared to, you know, that video would definitely get demonetized. It might actually even get, what's the word? Get a copy or a strike, because you're showing people how to do something. So yeah, I would do it. And the next one was, you have to fight your way on foot to your bug out location through a city that's erupted in violence after SHTF. There's no time to stop for supplies as the sirens are blaring, meaning that the bombs are incoming or something like that. If you could only have one of these tools, which would it be? A telescopic baton stuck on deployed, a replica handgun that looks real, 32-inch barrel shotty with 2 rounds of birdshot, that's a very long gun, a very dull combat knife, and a half-used can of expired bear spray. And just so you know, just because it's expired doesn't mean it's ineffective like most things. Most people went for the very dull combat knife because they felt that they could sharpen it. What I found, you know, what I was thinking with the replica handgun that looks real, with that you could probably fool a lot of people, and it's concealable. So, like, you wouldn't be running through the streets with a 32-inch barrel shotgun and you only have 2 rounds of birdshot to defend yourself if somebody does start taking shots at you. So, I was really considering the replica handgun for this, but the telescopic baton, even though it's stuck undeployed, that's another good option too. So, yeah, and I think there might be one more that I had done. What is the most likely global disaster scenario in the coming years? Most people chose economic collapse. Second was global conflict. Third was cyber attack. 12 was environmental catastrophe. And 5th was pandemic. Personally, I think pandemic is probably one of the most likely scenarios. I mean, we are well overdue for that. We are well overdue for all of these things. I mean, all of this stuff is going to come probably all at once or in quick succession. Yeah. And the last one. So when EMP just hit and you were on the highway, your car stalled and has no power. It's fried. Which I should add, in this upcoming EMP video, as I'm going to talk about, very few cars are actually going to be fried by EMP, but it's still going to be a very significant cluster, when 5% of the cars on the road stop working instantly. You are 50 miles from the nearest town and 100 miles from home. You can only take one set of items. Which do you take? So you get the option here. You can take 2-gallon jugs, 2 1-gallon jugs of water, and 5 caffeine pills, 3 days worth of nutritious food, a shotgun with 6 rounds of buckshot, a radio that survived the EMP, and a map of the area. First aid kit, a tool kit, and a working flashlight. So, a lot of people went for the first aid kit, the tool kit, and the working flashlight. I wouldn't have went with that. I think people had a good idea going with that water and caffeine pills, because all you're trying to do is get home. And water, and 50 miles, that's not much, you can probably do that in a day if you're persistent. So yeah, I'd take the water and the caffeine pills too. So yeah, shotgun. Some people are going to be running down the road with a shotgun and buckshot, but no water or food in their system. That's not good. Anyways, here's one more funny one, and we'll end on this note. Who would survive the apocalypse longest? Donald Trump, All-American Prepper, Justin Trudeau, Samuel L. Jackson, or Rosie O'Donnell? So who do you think won this one? Obviously, the All-American Prepper came out way, way ahead. Interestingly, Samuel L. Jackson and Donald Trump tied for second place. Justin Trudeau right behind Rosie O'Donnell. So that's I get a kick out of that. We're gonna have to do more fun ones like that. Anyways, guys, like I said, if you want to support the channel, go get a bug out roll, the matte finish. This thing is heavy duty, man, built like a tank. I've already made a video unraveling what it looks like on the inside, but it is just they keep getting better at making them too. The stitching keeps getting better as they learn the process more and more. And worth every penny. So go check it out. Thanks for watching. Canadian Prepper out.